Hi Stampers, this is Kim with Great Inspirations. Thank you for joining me for another episode of my Stamp Happy Holidays series of card making ideas. Today's cards use a technique that I call the ink swiping technique. And there are many ways to do this technique, but the inspiration for these cards actually came from the Stampin' Up! July through December 2022 mini catalog. This card right here. They have used white craft ink. They've embossed the cardstock and then used white craft ink to kind of swipe over the embossed image. And that is exactly what I did here. And the products I used were the Whimsical Woodland embossing folder. I don't know if you can see the images on it very well. Let me put some cardstock under it. I don't know if that helps. But it's really very fun, festive, whimsical trees. And I just really thought that was a really fun embossing folder for Christmas cards. And then the only other thing I added as far as stamping goes is a greeting, and the greetings came from the Brightest Glow stamp set. Now these cards are what I call my mini slimline cards, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the size of these. These will fit in like a letter-sized envelope, and that I believe is a number 6 3/4, if I have that correct, but just something that you would mail a regular letter in, and that's what I do. I put these in just a regular envelope. I do buy the kind that do not have the security lining, but yes, you only get one card from a sheet of cardstock. Is it wasteful? Maybe, but I use what's left over of the cardstock after I make this card base for to layer. Use it for mats, for layering on other cards. And then there's a smaller strip that I use for die cuts or to mat sentiments. So, but the cardstock for this has to measure 6 3/8 by 7, and then you score it along the 7-inch line at 3 1/2. Now, if you have the Stampin' Up! Trimmer, you will see that, let me see if I can get this up here. Right after the 6, then you have 6 1/16, 6 1/8, and it's like, oh, wait, this gets all jumbled up in here in this joint. But I can tell you where 6 3/8 is on this Stampin' Trimmer. We'll just stick in our cardstock and put it right clear over until we're right at this white on this end of the measuring stick. Right there, that is 6 3/8. But if you forget that, or if you just have trouble with it, here's something else you can do. Have to get my score board here. I'm just going to use that. Put our cardstock along here with the 11-inch side at the top. And we're just going to score at 6 1 2 3/8. Just score all along the cardstock. Remove that. Now we'll get the trimmer. And just line our cards, the score line. Just line that up with this the little cutting trough right there. Line it up. And then we'll cut, and you have your 6 3/8. And then we're going to turn and cut this at 7. And then, like I said, we will score at 3.5. Use the lighter color blade for scoring. And there is our mini slimline card base. It's just that easy. So put that away for now. And now we'll talk about our card design for today. Here's the not Tempting Turquoise. I always think of Tempting Turquoise, but it's Tahitian Tide. And this one is in the Polished Pink. And this one is the Parakeet Party. Now, I did mine with the white craft ink on this one, and it just, I heat set it, and I don't know, you can just barely tell the whites there. So maybe I needed to re-ink my pad, but it's okay. I'm happy with it. But next time I think I will re-ink my pad before doing that again. As you can see, I think the brighter colors for me on white, I like those better. And in the catalog, it talks about, well, actually in the supply list for these cards, it talks about this is the distressing technique, and in places it does look a little distressed. But I was happy with it. It's a little different. This technique does take some getting used to, as you can see from my samples. This was the first one I did. Didn't turn out too awfully bad, but there were places I just wasn't all that happy with. And then here's my second attempt. And again, at this end, I had, as you can see here and here, just an awful lot of color. And then there would be splotches. And then here's another attempt that was even worse. And for some reason, I flipped it on the back on the deboss side, and actually I kind of liked that better. But I finally did get the hang of it, and I will attempt to show you how to do this ink swiping technique. As you can see, I have a piece of basic white cardstock, and I have embossed it with the Whimsical Woodland embossing folder. And I'm just going to take some of the Tahitian Tide ink. It's such a pretty color. And I'm going to just, I kind of hold on here, and it might have been better if I cut my cardstock a little longer and just had a place to hold on, but I'm just going to kind of start here. I'm going to flip it around very carefully. See, there's a little bit of ink there I'm not that happy with. Just kind of get it here and there. Then I have a little bit here, just a little bit more. I always get afraid. And there you go. Of course, you could go back over it if you have places that you want to get a little more ink. You could trim this off if you wanted. And then it is ready to put on a card base, and I have one right here. And before I do that, and I also have a greeting. And like I said, this greeting is from the Brightest Glow stamp set. And these dies are the Beautiful Shapes dies. In this catalog sample, that's what they used for their greeting, and I really like that. I like these hexagon dies, but I always forget I have them. So finding a way to use them, it always makes me happy. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put some ribbon on this card base. So I'm going to just put a little bit of adhesive sort of along, this is a new thing of adhesive, sort of along the middle. And this is about 22, 23 inches of ribbon. And it is the metallic woven ribbon, and it comes in all the current ink colors. This happens to be the Tahitian Tide. I'm going to kind of get it to be a little manageable here. I may have a little too much on this side. Just tie a bow. I can make my hands work this morning. And then it's just a little smaller. Trim the ends a little bit. Put a little more adhesive on the back. Center this as best we can. We have our greeting, and I have some dimensionals to put on the back of it. We'll put it, I don't know, kind of like it there, but I also kind of like it over here a bit, maybe right here. And there's our card. Now, this piece of cardstock, it measures 3 by 5 7/8, and I would cut a piece. Oh, I did. That's funny. I'll have to do my card over. I cut the piece the same for the inside. Well, that makes an interesting card, doesn't it? But anyway, if you do it correctly, your greeting will be right here and you can sign your name. Anyway, that is how I made my mini slimline cards and a look at the swiping technique. Now, on my blog, there will be all the measurements and the supply list for the cards that I've made. And there will be a couple other little tips about the swiping technique. And there will be a link to that blog post in the description of this video. Thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, stamp happy.